Okay, students, in this video we're going to start with a series of components that we'll be using to eventually move forward to assemblies in the class. Okay, so we're going to create an engine, and what we'll do is for the entire series, if you will, we're for the most part going to be using all of these things. So we're going to, of course, be creating drawings. We're going to be using the drawing tools, dimensioning, geometric constraints. We're also going to extrude, revolve, and then this one's pretty important on how to create sketches in new faces. So in one of the last videos, we covered some of these things. I believe it was the introduction to extrude video. So what we'll do is we'll carry on with those, but now we're going to start using combinations of them to create a more complex type of component. Okay. So of course we're still going to fully define our sketches. We're going to worry about our position X, position Y, size, and angle for every single component in our sketches. That way we fully define them. And this is the first component that we're going to work on. Okay, so this is a piston head that we're going to create. Now we're going to be using both the revolve and extrude to create this model. And as you can probably figure it out, this specific model, the first part or the main body is used, it's created using the revolve feature, and then the tabs are created using the extrude feature, of course, along with the holes as well. Now, I did not define it here, but the units for all of the components will be in millimeters. So just make sure you set everything to millimeters when working on these components. Okay. Now here we have our first sketch, but it looks a little bit different than what you're used to. The reason for that is this sketch was created using another CAD software called NX. Now NX is kind of similar to Fusion. Each CAD system might have some things a little bit different than others, but I wanted to show you this because the way I teach this course is if you follow all of the proper procedure as far as sketching, fully defining, and then eventually moving up to extrude and revolve, then all of those fundamentals can be applied to any CAD software. Okay, so even though this looks a little bit different than what we're used to, it's all still the same. So we still have connections to the X, we still have connections to the Y. Of course, we have rectangles, circles, dimensions, constraints, all of those good things. Okay, so as long as you are able to follow the fundamentals, you can pick up almost any CAD software and you should still be able to CAD. Okay, now we also have two more sketches. So this sketch on the left is for the tabs, and then the sketch on the right is for the hole that will have to go through the tabs. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll actually jump into Fusion and start up this drawing right here. So let's first take a look at a couple of things. So even though the drawing looks complex, it's very simple shapes that are happening here, right? So we have two rectangles. So we have this first rectangle, the bigger one, and then this smaller one up down here, and then we have two circles, and that's pretty much it, right? That's the only thing that's going on in this sketch. So the main rectangle is 19 by 20, and then the inner rectangle is just a difference of 5 on both dimensions, and of course it's touching that origin right at the bottom corner, right? So 19, 20. So let me jump into Fusion, and then let's actually start working on this. Okay, so again, we're working on millimeters. So here we have millimeters. We're good. What I'll do is I'll save this before I start. So I'll call this the piston head. Okay, notice again I'm in week 3, so that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and save it, and then what I'll do is I'll start my first drawing. So I'll start there, and then I'm gonna start creating that sketch. Okay, so we said that it was 19 by 20. So this one here has to be 20, and then this one here has to be 19. Okay, so there's my 19 by 20. I'll zoom in a little bit. Then maybe we can even move these like so. And then I'll create another rectangle inside. Now this one has to have a difference of 5, right? So 5 there and 5 there. There we go. And now if I jump back into the sketch, we can see that we have pretty much all of that done, and then we just need this circle. So the circles are 3 millimeters in diameter, and they're positioned at 6 and 6 vertically, so 3 and 6. Okay, so let me jump back over here. I'll start off my drawing, my circle with C on my keyboard, and then I'll create that first one, which is 3. Then I'll create my second one, which is also 3. Okay, and then I'm going to do dimension. So the center of the circle to this, that has to be 6. And then the center of the circle to this, that has to be 6 as well. Okay, and we pretty much have everything we need, right? So let's just double check. Let me jump into my presentation. So yeah, distance of 6, 3, the 2 rectangles. Now we have a lot of extra lines and stuff. You can trim those, but remember, sometimes when you trim, you might lose some of the connections, so just sort of be careful with that. Okay, now as long as we have this area, we should be good to go. Okay, so I'll go ahead and finish the sketch. I'll go to revolve, and then I'll select that area right there. Okay, so there's my area. Now I'll select my axis of revolution as that one right there. As you can see, we just created that new body. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and hit OK. Now for my body, I now need to have the 2 tabs coming out from the bottom, right? So for the tabs, if I go to the next slide, I have this sketch. So my tabs are 10 by 3, and then they're positioned 4 and 4 from the axis, and of course they're centered. So this blue line that you can see here, that's my Z axis. So again, the tabs, if we take a look at this image here, you can see that the tabs are not really centered. They're offset to one of the sides. Okay, so let's go ahead and take care of those tabs. Now the only other thing that I want to make sure you understand is the extrusion for the tabs has to end exactly where the bottom surface of that piston head ends. Okay, so both all 3 of these areas right here have to be flush with each other. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch to Fusion again. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so there's a couple of things we can do. We first need to create a new sketch, right? So we can create a sketch in this surface right here, right? We could create a surface in a sketch in this inside surface, that in face we just created, or this top face we just created. Okay, so usually what I like to do is I always like to start off where things intersect. Okay, so this surface is where my 2 bodies would intersect, so this is where I want to start that new sketch. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hit that, and then what I'll do is I'll start off with my 2 rectangles. So there's one, there's another. Okay, and then what I'll also do is I'll do line, so type L in my keyboard and then type X for construction, and what I'll do is I'll start off at the origin and go to the left. So I just created a construction line that's going to be defining my X axis. Okay, all right, now what I can do is I can start dimensioning. So dimension, so this one here has to be 3 and the height has to be 10, right? Now all I need to do to the other one is make it equal to the first one. So that equal to that, that equal to that. And then to bring them down to the same level, I can do collinears of the top lines. Okay, there we go. Now, all I need to do is move both rectangles down a little bit to the point where they're centered. Okay, so there's different ways we can do that. Probably the easiest to understand would be to just give a distance from this line to my axis, and then that distance would have to be whatever 10 is. So in this case 10 is D11. So if you hover about the 10, you'll see that new text box open up. So D11, that's the variable for this distance here. And then all we need to do here is for my new variable or my new dimension is type D11 divided by 2, because half of it has to go on the top, the other half has to be on the bottom, right? So now this one, by doing it this way, we just created a function. So now no matter what happens to the 10, both of these rectangles will always be centered about that horizontal line. Okay, now finally all I need to do is add the last two dimensions. So it's that one that has to be 4, and this one have to be 4. Oh, I think I messed something up there. So let me switch back to the presentation. I think I messed up one of the dimensions there. Yeah, so it's 4 between the centers. Okay, this one's correct. So center to the left is 4, and then center to center. Okay, so I'll switch that. So this one's wrong. I'll delete that one. You can just select it and press delete on your keyboard, or right click and delete, and then the distance from here to here has to be 4. There we go. Okay, so I'll go ahead and finish my sketch. Now, what I was talking about with them being flush is if I hit extrude or type E and select both of my rectangles, how far would I need to give that distance? Is it 17? Is it 16? Is it 12? Is it 11? What is it? Now, we can probably figure out the math, so let's go ahead and do that. Now, first things to take into account is where I created that sketch. I created this sketch in that inside surface, okay? So when I switch back to my PowerPoint, I can actually take a look at that from here. So I created that sketch in this line. That second sketch with the two rectangles is in this line right here, okay? And I needed to go down all the way down to this line. So we could probably figure out the math, and that is 20 minus 5 equals 15. So if we plug in 15, that should do the trick, okay? So here we have 18 so far. If I plug in 15 and rotate, you can see that they're flush, right? So that's good. You can figure out the math. Now, there's also another way. If you don't want to do the math, or if you don't have all the information to actually do the math or anything like that, what you can also do is you can use the inspect or measure tool, and you can just select that surface to this surface, and it should be able to give you a distance, as you can see. So there we have 15 millimeters for a distance, and it's depicted right there, okay? Or the third option you have is when you extrude, and I select this two, instead of for my extent, instead of it being a distance, you can just select to object, and then my object is going to have to be this surface right here. So that's going to mean that it's this program is going to extrude those two tabs up until the point where it intersects this new surface, okay, or this new object, if you will. All right. And then of course you have different things like the chain faces. So if you want to just to that edge, or if you want this to actually sort of follow the contour. In this case, it's the same for both because it's a flat surface, right? So we're not going to worry too much about that, okay? So again, 3 ways of doing the same thing. I'm going to hit OK, and we're done with that second part, okay? So now all that's left to do is to make the holes on the tabs, okay? So if we go back to the presentation, we should be able to find the last sketch right there. So what this is depicting is it's depicting the circle that's going to make up the holes. And then this blue line, that's gonna be the center line between my tabs, okay? And I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. And then of course we have the dimension for the circle itself. So we have 5 millimeters in diameter, and then we have 5 millimeters off of the bottom surface, the one we just selected to make both of them flush. Okay, so 5, 5, and of course center. So let me go back to Fusion and let's finish this off. So I'm gonna create a new sketch. This is my third sketch, okay? And then I'm gonna select this new surface right here, okay? So this new surface, this is where I'm gonna create my sketch, okay? So what I did here is I just rotated my view a little bit to help me visualize what I'm doing up here, okay? So first, I'm gonna create that circle. So that circle has to be 5 millimeters in diameter, okay? So there it is. Now that circle can move and do crazy stuff as of right now, right? It's not fully defined, fully constrained. So what I'll do is, notice how we have this origin right here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a construction line. So LX on my keyboard, that's perfectly horizontal, like so. And then what I'll do is I'll just do coinciding that center of my circle to that line. So that's gonna center it vertically about that tab. Notice how that circle is still blue because I'm still missing one very important dimension, which is my X position, right? So it can no longer move Y, but it can still move in the X. And that distance has to be 5 from, let's try it again. So 5 from the origin to the edge. There we go. There's 5. Now that circle is fully defined, fully constrained. Notice how it's on that surface that I just created with the tabs previously. Okay, I'm gonna hit finish sketch, and now I'm gonna use extrude, select that circle, and I'm gonna go into the material to remove, to cut. Okay, so cut is the operation. Now, very important, we have 2 different things happening here. So one, we have a distance, so that distance can be plus or minus, okay? That minus has nothing to do with adding or removing material. The minus is only helping you define the direction, okay? So in this case, plus is going to the right, minus is going to the left, okay? So that negative, again, the only thing that negative is doing is defining the direction. And the operation is the one that's either joining, cutting, or intersecting. In this case, it's cut because we're removing material, which is what we want, okay? Now, last part here, make sure you extrude that circle only to the point where you remove material from the 2 tabs, okay? Don't remove material from the outside or the main body of the piston head. So something like that, that's enough, that's good. Now here you don't really need a specific number. As long as you pass through, that's okay, because you're not going to generate any material here either way, because this is just removing what's already on the tabs, okay? So I'll go ahead and hit OK. And as you can see, now my 2 tabs have that hole going through them, okay? So important concepts to take from this example. We've seen another extrude and revolve. The sketches, even though they might look complex, as long as you take it step by step, you should be able to figure out what to do and how to do it. And finally, you understand that you can create new sketches in different surfaces other than 3 original planes. Okay, so you don't always have to use the XY, the YZ, and the XZ planes to create sketches. Okay, when you generate a new surface, you can actually use that new surface to create a sketch on top of it. All right, so I'll go ahead and stop this video right here. We'll continue on with some of the other components for the engine exercise. So just be on the lookout for that. Okay.